Hey, David. Appreciate you taking the time to chat today. I actually just have a few quick questions about your engagement with D.I.G.S. Nothing too formal, just to give everyone an honest take of what it's like working with us and what stood out. So just like kicking off, starting at the beginning, when you first started working with D.I.G.S, what was the main problem you were trying to solve with VidSwap slash Pixellot?
Yeah, so when we worked with Diggs, the main thing we were looking at is how can we drive more demos for our sales team. So the specific product that we were working on was our VidSwap line, which is a coaching and analytics platform. At the time, we were selling into the high school market. And Pixellot has a brand within high schools through our partnership with NFHS Network and PlayOn, but we weren't necessarily seen as a coaching platform. And so our main line of work with Diggs was to develop email campaigns and other outreach to help educate the market and drive interested parties to do demos with our team of sales folks that were focused on that product. And so Diggs did a great job, understanding what the business was and then putting emails and campaigns together to help us approach the market.
Cool. And just painting a picture for someone watching or listening, what was going on to that segment before Diggs? Like, was it more of a improve what's going on, or was it like a hey, we don't have this campaign at all, like we started from the ground up? Like, where were we?
I'd say it mostly was starting from the ground up. We had individual salespeople that were sending emails, one-offs that were making calls, but it wasn't really a cohesive approach that had the right tracking and metrics and efficiencies that we needed. And so that's where we leaned on Diggs, was to build this into our CRM, which we use Zoho, which is a competitor of Salesforce. And so Diggs was able to come in and really streamline the whole process to help make our salespeople that much more efficient. And then also from a management level, give me the ability to see the activity and clicks and opens and results of the campaigns that we were doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, just sequential order here. So I assume what happens is internally, you're like, oh, we have this thing we need to figure out. We don't have the resources internally. So when you were evaluating or when we first started talking, like what stood out about Diggs or myself that helped make the decision to like choose us as the partner to help that?
Yeah. So I think what stood out the most was that you were really data oriented and results oriented. So even past just like, did the demo get booked? You were on top of having our team track what the follow up steps were and then when business was closed so that we could see the direct result of the money that we're spending with Diggs on the ARR that we were driving as a business. So that was the first and most important. And then the second thing that stood out is just your previous background in the industry. The high school and youth sports industry is pretty unique. And so the fact that you had spent time with the type of customer base that we're going after and understood who they are and how to communicate them was also a plus.
Yeah, definitely a not typical industry there. And obviously that helps knowing the industry and having some experience. And you actually just kind of like parlayed right into my next question, which you mentioned like data driven and data backed, which is something that I take very seriously. So, what were some of like the biggest wins or results you saw during the time working with Diggs? That could be like numerical, like pipeline or won deals. That could be like milestone, like getting this thing stood up and working. Just like when you think on the engagement, what do you think about like the wins?
Yeah, I think the biggest win was just starting from zero, and then within a couple of weeks' time having this rolling, and then we won business too. So I don't remember the exact amount of ARR, but from my recollection, we generated more in ARR than we spent with you, so it was a win. And then it also just got other things started in the pipeline. Now, we ended up stopping our relationship because we ended up licensing that part of the business to PlayOn and FHS Network, so there wasn't the need for us to sell to that vertical anymore. But the reason we stopped was, outside of the results that we had with you guys.
Cool. And yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Is there anything like, or was there anything surprising, or there's always expectations when you start working with a vendor or a new person, and then it's always like reality is usually a little bit different. Was there
Yeah.
anything on your end that like surprised you or was surprising, either good or bad, about working with Diggs after you signed the contract?
No, nothing. I don't think that was surprising. I mean, I think you guys are very customer service oriented, which we appreciated. You guys were always super responsive. Having you guys on Slack, not just during business hours, but after hours was really helpful. So overall, it was a great experience.
Answer I like to hear. Uh, yeah, I'd rather that than a bad surprise. And then if somebody, I mean, I know this has actually come up in real life. So if somebody uh, were to ask about digs, like what would you tell them if you were, met them out or at a bar in an elevator? Like, how would you actually describe digs for your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would describe them as, very organized, data driven, able to execute on certainly the lead gen and demand gen part. But the focus is narrow. It's not an all inclusive marketing agency. So if somebody's looking for something that's all inclusive, it's probably somebody different. But if somebody's looking for someone who's really good at lead gen, and then also the integration with CRM around lead gen, then you guys are the ones.
Cool. And yeah, that's one thing I'm focused on in the business is kind of like having that spear of like what we do versus don't do. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you said we're not all inclusive, because I think some early Digs customers may have a different opinion based on earlier engagements. So yeah, that's also intentional on my end. And yeah,
I think that's important. You can go with big agencies that have people that do everything, but then you're probably not going to get the attention in the area that you want in any one area. So, yeah, there's give and take on that.
yeah, you sound like me. Usually when I'm talking to people pre-sales or in the sales process, I'm like, you need these things set up. We need to know the market. We need to have some marketing assets, right? You need to have a CRM. Like if you don't have those things in place, Diggs isn't going to be the right person for you or partner for you. So yeah, 100%. And then just day to day. I asked this question because I know, again, working with agencies, third parties, vendors, the experience can be pretty drastically different from a day to day. And I also know that you were kind of the person who brought us in and involved in the day, but not necessarily like the main point of contact for everything. So I'd love to get like your perspective on what it was like day to day for my team and need to work with you and your team.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I wasn't day to day on everything. Kiki, who's our VP of sales, was the one that worked directly with you, but got really good feedback from her again on the communication and responsiveness of the Digs team. And then I was always able to get the highlights and executive summaries that I needed from you guys. You understood what I was looking for and was able to make that pretty turnkey.
Yeah. Again, thank you. And that's what we're always trying to do. And often, actually, almost always the person who hires us, quote unquote, is not necessarily the person we're in talks with day to day or working with day to day. So like getting that person or people the info they need is often a different level of comms than the day to day. So yeah, I'm glad that you felt that it was the way the engagement was set up. Structure was like a good way to get information, not to like just the team, but also to you from like an
Yeah.
executive standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last question is just like if you were to pick a differentiator, if somebody asked you like what makes Digs different than any other marketing or demand gen agency, like what would come to mind?
I guess the differentiator for me is that since you guys are a small business, you get the founder and CEO of the business's attention on this, and you've got great market expertise. So to be able to have you almost like as a fractional executive leading our demand gen, I think is really helpful. Whereas with bigger agencies, you're going to get an account manager who might not be as experienced and seen as many different things as you have in this area. So to me, that's the biggest differentiator is,
Yeah, appreciate the time and really means a lot to me in the business. So thank you.
yeah, no problem. Happy to help and great catching up with you.
Thanks, David.